Hello and welcome to episode 19 of my trip down memory lane back to the Pacific Crest Trail and my Thru-hike exactly 10 years ago. In the last episode we arrived in Shelter Cove and spent a lovely afternoon there, had good conversation, picked up our food and went swimming. But then we set off again in the early evening. And yes, the next few days of the trail would be all about lakes, and that's exactly how it continued. Shelter Cove itself was located on a lake, and in the early evening we walked along here, and I have to say I really like lakes. Somehow they just have something totally calming and peaceful about them, which I always enjoy very much. And unsurprisingly, we'd pitched our tent by a beautiful lake in the evening and went to bed relatively early, but the next morning there was an absolutely spectacular sunrise over the lake. Let's take a look at this short video. I remembered well because I woke up because of the color, because it was so orange in the tent, and I was like, what is that? And then I looked outside and saw the sun rising over the lake, and we camped right here on this side where I'm standing now, and then getting up in the morning and enjoying the silence over this lake with this incredible play of colors. We stayed there for a while, and then a little later, when the sun was a little higher, it bathed the lake in this wonderful sparkle. It was just wonderful. Waking up like this is simply priceless. Yes, and then as always we continued on the trail and reached another milestone, the 1900 mile mark. I didn't find any markings on the ground at the time. I don't know if I just overlooked them or if no one had put any. But so during the break I made my own out of all my granola bars. These bars here, the kind bars, which I got from a hiker box along with Lara bars. I think the only bars I actually bought were the fruit cereal bars and maybe the nature valleys, which I also bought sometimes, but the rest are all from the hiker box. And that's also where I ate kind bar for the first time. You know, they are pretty expensive and I never bought them myself, but they were really tasty and it was a really good find in the hiker box. I also remember this dragonfly very well. It sat with us for a while. I don't know. It obviously had a broken wing, but then it flew away again later, but it looks great, doesn't it? The metallic color, it doesn't look like an animal at all, more like a pen or something. So it's definitely very unrealistic, but it's a cool animal. And we continued on. We continued along the lakes. We continued through this amazing Canadian, Swedish-looking landscape of lakes and coniferous forests. And we made the most of it. We took breaks all the time. We hiked relatively slowly during that time, I would say relatively leisurely at a moderate pace, and then we always stopped at the lakes and just enjoyed the time. We lay down there and spent 2 or 3 hours by the lake during our lunch break, just relaxing, and I think that's something you need to do on the trail, and I believe that many people in Oregon did the same. Everything calmed down a bit, so we were at the point where we knew, okay, we are on schedule. So we come back to that later, but we were planning to attend a festival in Portland, which meant we knew exactly when we had to be in Cascade Locks from where the road goes to Portland. And we just realized, this is working. We'll definitely arrive on time. We could take it really easy and just walk 18 miles or something like that. And that's what we did. And at that point, there were already a lot of fires, especially in Washington, and I think a lot of people in Oregon just took a little more time to see how things would develop there. And so we just had a very good time there and spent a lot of time just lying around. But then relatively soon there was another switch to a different landscape, and then there were mountains again. And what mountains! Volcanoes, And I don't even know what this mountain here is called. No idea. There are so many mountains that, you know, you always read the names like Mount St. Helens and Mount Rainier and Mount Jefferson and all these names and Mount Hood. And you kind of hear them all the time. But except for Shasta and Whitney, I can't remember which mountain had which name. And I guess it's not that important because the mountain itself doesn't know what it's called either. But above all, I always enjoyed looking at these mountains. When I look through my pictures again, I realized I had probably taken 30 pictures of this mountain alone. You know, the digital age. If I'd had a film camera with me back then, it would have been very different. But I could never get enough of looking at these mountains and taking pictures of them. And even today, when I'm in the mountains, I can never get enough of looking at these great summits. And yeah, I really enjoyed walking through this open countryside. As you can see, it's relatively flat here, and there were some large plains that you hiked through, but always with a very prominent mountain in view, which was very, very cool. I really like that part of the trail. Yeah, this is a typical camp from that time. I think we always camped by lakes at this stage. I think we had our first ice on the tent here at this lake, our first frost. If I remember correctly, we woke up in the morning to find a layer of ice on the tent, and I think that was there, but it melted away quite quickly. As you can see, the sun is already shining on the tent here, so that side always melted quite quickly, of course, and there was still ice on the other side, but you can just knock that off quite easily from below. Yeah, we often had ice on the tent, but it wasn't necessarily super cold inside the tent itself. It got significantly colder later on, but we come back to that when we are in Washington. A great waterfall on this picture. I cannot remember it at all. I saw the picture and thought, well, this looks great, but I have no memory of it. But yeah, it doesn't necessarily speak well for my memory that I don't remember such a great sight, or maybe I had just seen so many waterfalls by then and it wasn't anything special anymore, which is definitely possible, but yeah, I don't know. I can't remember it, but it's definitely nice to see. I can remember this really well though. It was one of my absolute favorite days on the entire trail. We walked through this landscape, which was obviously volcanic, and it was really, really crazy. You really felt like you were on a different planet. It was so surreal. As you can see up here, there were hardly any plants. Here are a few trees, but there it's just a bit of moss and nothing else, just rocky scree. It was hot and dusty, and you were basically walking on lava sand, and it was super exhausting to walk, but it was also totally exciting. And I can remember I was walking up this mountain, and there was another hiker in front of me whom I knew, and I caught up with him and walked behind him for a couple minutes. And I don't like to disturb people in their routine and say, hey, can I pass, or something like that. I don't like to do that. I just hope that people will notice me at some point and let me pass. But he just didn't notice me at all. And at some point he looked to the side and saw me out of the corner of his eye, and he got really scared and jumped. And I had been walking behind him for a few minutes, like 2 meters behind him, and he wasn't listening to music or anything, but he said he was so blown away by the landscape that he was in some kind of hypnotic state that he simply didn't notice anything else except what he was seeing. And I can totally understand that, because I kind of felt the same. It was just a spectacular landscape. When you look at how barren and hostile to life it actually is here, there's really nothing here but volcanic rock. This is more extreme than Iceland, and it's just totally, totally spectacular. And yeah, my hiker friend definitely saw it the same way as I did. And yeah. Then there was also, I don't even know if it's smoke or fog. It's just some sort of dizziness, and it was one of the most beautiful days of all, also because of this mood that it created. And well, that's why I have 3 slides of photos here, and I took many, many more photos that day. But you can really see that it's a totally interesting and beautiful landscape. here I did the astronaut thing, like, hey, I'm reporting from planet Mars or whatever, just a little joke, but it was definitely a really great day, and I still like to think back to it. I had never seen such a landscape before or since, and it is definitely one of the spots on a PCT that has stayed with me. Another place that has stayed with me is Big Lake Youth Camp, which is where we end our current stage. It was a short stage, or one where not much happened, but quite a lot happened at Big Lake Youth Camp itself. It's a camp run by the Seventh-day Adventists, a Christian group that organizes vacation camps for children and young people there, and I believe families can go there too. They are very hospitable and welcoming to hikers, and you don't have to be a Christian or anything like that. Anyone can go there. I'm an agnostic myself, and I'm always a bit skeptical about camps like this, but I'm not a big fan of being part of some Christian mission or whatever. But I have to say that wasn't the case there at all. We arrived there, and if you didn't know it, you wouldn't think that this is some kind of religious camp. And we weren't allowed to camp directly on the grounds back then for insurance reasons, but they assigned us a beautiful spot by the lake, a great place to camp where we pitched our tents. And we spent every day with the people on the camp, and it was really cool because every one of them was so relaxed. They were all so nice, and they served 3 great buffets every day. And what I liked very much is that most of them are vegetarians, and I am a vegetarian too. And back then in the US, it wasn't that easy. Meat was, and I guess still is, a big deal in the US, as you know. And there was not much vegetarian food available in most of the town stops. But here it was totally different, and it was very delicious food, and also kind of healthy food, which I hadn't had for a long time. As you know, we hikers do not eat healthy most of the time. And but there, we just went there for every meal and quickly became friends with the people over the eating process. And I remember one person in particular, I've forgotten his name, but I can still picture him in my mind, a young man who was about my age at the time, maybe a little younger. And we had really good conversations. And at some point, I also asked him about his religious beliefs, because although I am an agnostic myself, I'm really interested in religion. Religion is one of my biggest areas of interest because I find it incredibly fascinating how religion has developed and continues to develop throughout the world. And he actually talked about his faith and so on, but I was never asked about my own beliefs, and I like that. I like when people, and also when he talked about his beliefs, he didn't push them on me, or he didn't present them as the ultimate truth. He just presented him at what he believes in. And this is what I really like in religious conversations, when people just talk about what they believe is true and what they believe helps them with their own life, but are also interested in what you believe. And that was definitely the case in this camp. And in the evening, we went to an event that they had organized just for themselves, The PCT hikers usually didn't go there. And when they saw that we were there, they were so happy, and they called us from the stage and saying, hey, they're our German friends. They walked from Mexico here. And they were just thrilled that we were interested in them and not just there to pick up some free food or whatever. And it was a really great stay. And they also had this little room here on the grounds itself where there were hiker boxes and sofas and stuff like that. And it was just a very nice stay. And we took a 0 day there, had a really great time, awesome conversations, beautiful people. And I can only advise anyone who wants to hike the trail to go there, because it was just a really nice experience. But that's where we will end this episode. And in the next episode, I can already tell you, we'll reach a mega milestone and also a really cool spot at the end. But until then, as always, feel free to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and if you have any questions or anything to say, write it in the comments. And otherwise, see you in the next video. Ciao!